Hi, I'm Cindy Ivy. I'm a department chair with Proximity Learning, and I've been teaching science now since January 2007, so a long time. One of the questions that we get a lot here at Proximity is, how do you do labs? I asked that question when I started, so I totally understand if that's your question. There are three ways that we do labs, and I've tried all of them, and they're fantastic. Okay, so for science classes where you're working with hazardous materials or chemicals, that sort of thing, even when I was in the brick and mortar classroom, we were starting to move towards virtual labs, right? They just keep your students safer. They explain concepts at a molecular level. They make it really simple for students to work with dangerous substances without getting hurt. Also great for biology students who don't really want to dissect something, right? So virtual labs are a fantastic way to do that. Let me share with you some things that you can do in a virtual lab. So here's an example. When you open it up, it would look like this. There's an introduction section for the teacher so that you can show what each item looks like. You can talk about it. You can show graphs. You can show titration levels. You can show electrolysis or conductivity. So there's a variety of ways that you could present the information here, depending on how you're teaching acids and bases, whether you're teaching to physics students, chemistry students, or physical science students. And then you can have your students come over to the My Solutions section and do the lab itself by putting in the concentrations needed and then finding the results for your lab questions. They can fill out the lab that's created for them, right? Okay, so there's virtual labs. Second way that we can do labs through Proximity is actual hands-on labs. And so there are a few ways that that happens. So sometimes the school will have resources already on hand. So maybe your science department has circuit boards already and batteries already, and your kids can put together circuits from materials that have been purchased in the past, right? Van de Graaff machines, great. They can put their hands on it and their hair stands up, right? So sometimes your school already has a closet with science supplies. If so, your TA can help tap into that so that they can, so that the school can coordinate with you and you can use the resources already available. Sometimes the school doesn't have what you need, but they have funds for labs, in which case you can tap into that. And the TA and the teacher can work together to present lesson plans ahead of time and then get the funding to order something to dissect or supplies for a lab that you think is worthwhile for your students to do hands-on, right? Third, and this is an option that I've used myself several times, sometimes I will buy supplies to send to my classes. And so that looks like this. So here's an example of one that I did in physics. We were talking about springs. And so we did a spring lab, and I had a lab worksheet that I designed for my students, and I sent them springs that were different shapes, and they had to choose a partner. They had different spring shapes, and they had to test out the strength of their spring and calculate using Hooke's law, the different things, that's the force and that sort of thing, based on what they got. So that was a really fun lab, and I sent enough springs slinkies, right? I used like the party favor pack on Amazon, just had them mailed to the school, and everybody got to take one home. So it was a fun little lab that they got to do, right? The third way that you can do labs in the classroom is project-based learning. And so I've done this frequently as well. So when the school doesn't have the budget and you don't have the budget for the kids to do a project and there's nothing on hand, and you feel like a hands-on experience is going to be good for your kids for that topic, then you can have them do a project that that examines the concept, right? I tend to do one of these per semester just because I don't want to overload my kids too much with requirements where they have to provide something from home. But in physics, I did a roller coaster project where they worked in groups together to build a miniature roller coaster using whatever supplies they wanted to. And then they had to calculate some different things like the gravitational potential energy, kinetic energy, that sort of thing. We worked on that in class, and they could bring their supplies into the classroom and build it in class so that I was able to see and help them with concepts, right? And then they did their presentation on they stood up in the front of the room with a computer pointed at them so that I could see their presentation, and I graded them according to a rubric that I'd given them ahead of time. Okay, so they were able to bring in materials that they purchased from home or that they gathered from their house to create the roller coasters. Now, I did demos ahead of time so that they could see what a good example would look like. I created a demonstration from home and showed them, on camera, but I also mailed a demo to the TA using supplies that were inexpensive and told the TA that any students who couldn't afford to purchase supplies for their project were welcome to use the free ones that I sent so that they could have that demonstration live with the TA, okay? So that's the 3 ways that you can do labs. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, feel free to reach out to me. My email is civey@proxlearn.com, and I'll be happy to chat with you more about it. Hope you have a great day.